Hey there! My name is Corinne O'Flynn, and you're listening to the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I am a USA Today bestselling author, nonprofit executive, and organizing nerd with over 20 years' experience running my own small businesses. I teach entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and small business owners like you how to organize your business, find more time, and deepen your alignment practice to experience more calm and confidence every single day. If you're looking for that intersection between practical business advice and spiritual goodness, then you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into this week's episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome to the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Corinne O'Flynn, and this is episode 14. On an earlier episode of this podcast, I talked about my goal setting process and how I approached my goal setting, looking at all the tasks through the lens of time and then working them backward through the lens of each thing's process, right? And after that episode, I received many emails and messages from listeners out there. So, hey, shout out to all of you. Thank you. Asking for more in-depth discussion on goal setting, because we all know that it's not enough to set a goal, right? And just set it and forget it. We can't do that. We have to figure out a way to keep it top of mind and also, do the rest of our business and live our lives and all those things. So I figured today I would talk about, the importance of goal setting and how it goes deeper than just writing out your goals. Like, you have to have an action plan, and what does that look like? And so for me, I wanted to share the way that I look at my goal setting as a smaller piece of the annual and, the multi-year, longer, long-term goals. And maybe that, will help, point you in the direction of something that might be helpful to you. So as we know, it is not enough to just set a goal. Goal setting is important, right? It's something that we need for our personal and our professional development. It enables us to identify what we want to achieve in our life and in our business. And the important piece, to develop a plan of action, right? And so while goal setting is beneficial, it also has its own set of challenges. And if we intend to achieve our goals, it's important that we go into goal setting with our eyes open to all of those things and meet them at the pass, like head them off at the pass, nip them in the bud, do all the cliches that you can do to get ahead of them, ahead of those challenges and ahead of the things that we know that are our personal pitfalls, so that we can really, not just achieve our goals, but really get there with knowing that we made a plan and the plan worked. And if we're working through our plan and the plan doesn't work, then we have enough time and space. We've built in enough margin to catch that, to know, hey, wait, I'm off kilter here. I need to reset. I need to pivot. I need to realign. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Right. So if you're looking for the deeper dive into how I set goals, that's episode 5 of this podcast, where I break down my time and process method. And that is available at corinneoflynn.com, episode 5, or of course, wherever you're listening to your podcast, just scroll back up to episode 5. And so to get into today's episode, I wanted to talk about, why is goal setting important, right? And it might seem obvious. Yes, we need goals. We need to know where we're going, but I think it goes deeper than that. And it's, of course, goals provide direction, because without clear goals, we can get lost. We can figure, something out, but we might not hit it in the most efficient manner. We might not make a straight line to the goal. And it's like driving without the headlights and without a map, right? The GPS is off, the map is in the dark, and the headlights are out, and we're just driving. And that's wasting our time, and it's spinning our wheels, because we need to have that direction. So we may have an idea of what we want, but without a specific plan or direction, it can be challenging to make progress. And then if we don't have goals, we can also get sidetracked and discover that, the things that we're actually doing, the effort that we're making, has actually set us off on a side trail. Like, we've gone on a side quest, and we've no longer aligned our actions with the goals that we're trying to achieve. So it's really important that we are mindful of the map, of the compass point, right? Our goals are there to provide us that. They are providing direction for us, right? And Clear goals also help us to prioritize our time and how we're going to use our resources, right? By setting specific goals, we can identify the most critical tasks and allocate our most precious thing, which is our time, right? And our resources accordingly. And this can increase our productivity and our efficiency by helping us make the most of the time that we do have to spend on our goals. It also enhances our motivation because when we have clear goals, that clarity is going to help us stay on them. It's going to help us keep working toward them. Right. And I think we've all been in that place where our energy gets sapped by the world, right? It's the out where everything that's going on outside the bubble of our work and of our business and of our goals. Anything that's happening outside the walls of our little bubble can distract us. And so it's really good if we have clarity because that can bring us back in. It can center us really quickly and it can give us that drive that we need to stay inspired and keep taking that needle moving action that moves us toward our dreams, right? And goal setting encourages personal growth. And this is something that I have found has been really important to me, right? Setting and achieving goals, it helps us develop new skills, right? And then with each success, we've gained confidence. And then as we continue to go on our path, on our journey, we're gaining and expanding our knowledge base, right? And all of those things help us grow and develop as people, which challenges us. And as we continue to meet those challenges and we continue to face those obstacles, that helps us develop a growth mindset, which again, I'll talk about mindset until, I'm blue in the face. Having a growth mindset is key, right? It is the key to success. It's the key to staying in business. It's the key to perseverance. And having clarity and having these goals in place really does help us maintain that mindset. And if you don't have that mindset, it's actually something that you can choose. So it's not something that like you're born with. And I talk about that in episode 1, which is available at corinneoflynn.com/episode 1. Because the growth mindset is like, it's the big thing. It's the big kahuna. It's the big deal. It is really that important. And having goals that keep us on that personal growth edge really help us maintain and stay in a growth mindset because we just keep on going, right? We become the Energizer bunnies that just keep on cooking. And all of that helps us develop our resilience, which again is as important as a growth mindset. So goals provide us with a sense of purpose by helping us understand why we are doing what we are doing, right? They give us the reason to work hard and stay motivated, especially during challenging times, right? And if the last several years have taught us anything, it's that, shoot, man, like we can't predict everything and we have to be ready to roll with the punches. And knowing that we can persevere through challenges because we have a sense of purpose, because we have our goals in sight, because we know what we're aiming for, that can help us, that can inspire us to push through difficulties and overcome obstacles, knowing that we're working towards something that is meaningful and worthwhile for us. Right. And that brings me to my next point about goals, which is arguably as important as all the other things I just said. And that is you have to know your why. Right. And of course, your why is something that's one of those, it's almost like a buzzword. Like, you need to know your why in business. And it's the core of your business, right? Why are you doing this? Why are you here? Why do you continue to come to your work day after day with this fire in your belly? And I think sometimes, I know that I do. I assume that everyone knows the answer to this question, but, I don't think that that's necessarily true for everybody. So if you've never sat down and really dug deep into the question, I urge you to. Like, pause this podcast or after this podcast is over, or if you're driving or doing something, like when you get home, when you're able to sit down, like sit down and dig deep. And yeah, I think that all of us are in our businesses to make a living and to pay the bills. And I think that that's, an excellent thing that our businesses support us financially. That's a wonderful reason to be in business. But I would ask you to go further and dig deeper into that. And underneath that, supporting yourself, you chose this specific business for a reason. So why is this business the thing that you chose? What is the thing there that lights you up, right? Why does this matter? And that's something for personal exploration. And it's an answer that you need to have. But knowing your why really does improve decision making. It makes a lot of things a lot easier in your business because when you know your why, you have a clear understanding of what's important to you and what you value, right? And this can help you make better decisions because everything that you're doing in your business can be measured up against that ruler, which can help you identify whether or not an initiative that you're considering actually aligns with your larger vision, which would be your why, right? Like for me, as launching the Calm Entrepreneur and my coaching, I really feel strongly that we need to change the way we talk about the way we work. And I think we need to change the way we think about how we approach our work. And I think that we need to stop um, seeking work life balance. I don't think it's possible, especially for women entrepreneurs. And I think that we need to start looking for ways to integrate our businesses into our lives and our lives into our businesses and expect that we can do both and we can make both fit. And that requires like breaking a lot of the old systems and a lot of the beliefs that we have around those things. And that's why I come to this day after day and week after week. It's why I'm developing my programs. It's why I'm talking about the things that I choose to talk about on this podcast, right? So yeah, I want to help entrepreneurs get more organized and I want to help people learn to manage their time and manage their goals and declutter and do all the things. But the reason for that is because I think it's possible to do everything and not lose your mind in the process. And I'm doing that. And I think that I can teach other people how to do that. And I think that the more people that understand that that's accessible, it's going to change the world, guys. It's going to bring more people into entrepreneurship. It's going to make it something that is attainable for more and more people, especially more and more women. And that's my why. And so that's something that I keep coming back to. And yeah, and I am choosing to do this as a business because I also need to pay the bills, right? I got 4 kids to feed. I got kids in college. I got 3 dogs, man. So yes, it's a business. Yes, there's a whole practical side to it, but my why goes well beyond any financial concerns, right? I do believe that when you follow your why, and especially if your why is something that is vision oriented, right? It can really become all about the why. And then the financial piece kind of takes care of itself on the other side. It's a side effect, it's just a beautiful thing. So okay, that was a big side, but knowing your why helps you stay on path, right? It helps you know that anything that you're going to be considering doing, any initiative you're going to be taking on, any promotion, any marketing campaign, any partnership that you might take on, you can then know, does this align with what I'm doing? Does this fit with what my purpose is? Is this the thing that I really want to be doing right now? And if it's not, you're going to know because you've paid attention to your whys. Also, on the other side of that, knowing your why helps you strengthen your brand messaging. And it's something that seems kind of intuitive, I think, when you really dig down into it. But, on its surface, it might not be something that people really think about. It's really important to sink in and identify your why so that when you talk about why you're doing what you're doing, you can speak to it. And I'm not saying that every single thing has to have this magnanimous, altruistic, idealistic thing that you are trying to serve in the world. If they do, that's wonderful, right? Not everything has to have that message, but it really does help if you can speak to why you do what you do. And, another reason why I do what I do is I have a nonprofit that has absolutely nothing to do with my business, but it's a cause that I care super deeply about. In fact, I support 2 causes with my business. One is rescue animals because all of my dogs are rescue dogs. And there's a local rescue that I support through my efforts. And then I run a nonprofit that provides bereavement support to families that lose children. And everything that we do in that organization is free to the people who use it. And so we need to find ways to support my nonprofit. And so that's something that I choose to do through my business efforts. And that also adds another layer to my why, right? So when I have my why in my mind, in top of mind, anytime something comes to me as an opportunity, I can then dig deeper and find, like, is that in alignment? Is it not in alignment? Does it feel like it fits? Is it something that I can say I can marry to goal A, goal B, goal C? Um, and it's kind of like having policies. If you have a policy in place about something, or a contract in place that like outlines a certain agreement or an arrangement, having a why is kind of like having an internal policy with yourself. And it kind of draws the lines ar- around or within which you're going to operate. And if something arrives that sounds really juicy, but it's outside the lines, well, maybe you have to think twice about before you do that because it's not really going to be fitting with what you're doing. So they help with your brand and with your message in that way. So when you know your why, you can communicate your purpose and your values more effectively to your team, if you have one, and to your customers. It's part of your marketing. It can be part of everything that you do. It can be part of getting sponsors and like anything that you're doing, right? It helps you build a stronger message and it can resonate with your audience, which also helps you attract like-minded customers to your business. Like people Simon Sinek talks about this in his, I believe he calls it the golden circle. It's people don't necessarily buy what you're selling. They buy why you're selling it, right? People get behind a business because they get behind the movement of the business. And if you have something behind which people can rally, it serves you, right? But again, it has to be something true. Like I think that if you try to find something that doesn't actually fit, people will smell that. So you have to really like dig into that. So taking the time to understand your why, I think is crucial. And the juicier you can, the more you dig, I think the juicier it'll be. And when you find that, the role it plays can simplify everything because it will inform most, if not all, of your goals in your business. So I think I've established the importance of setting goals, right? Without clear goals, you're going to go nowhere fast, right? You won't know when you get there. How are you going to know you get there if you don't have a goal, right? So I have 3 tips to consider when you are setting your goals. And number one, my first tip is to set short-term milestones, right? We should all have the longer term goals in mind. And at the very least, annual goals, if you're not a fan of the 5-year plan or the 3-year plan, which that's great. You know, you do you. I think that there's some, um, but that's a strength, I think, for some people versus other people. Like it's some people are really into like that big 10-year plan, and some people have something a little bit more nebulous. And I have a big mission in my mind, but I don't know that I have assigned a time period to it. Like I would like to change, 1,000 entrepreneurs the way they function, or maybe bring 1,000 entrepreneurs into the fold of really seeing that it's possible to do it all, right? Without losing your mind, without overwhelm. I want to create 1,000 calm entrepreneurs. Like, wow, that would be the coolest thing. Like that would be a movement, you guys. That would change the world. So, but that's my longer term, without a date vision, right? I don't have a time frame on that yet. Maybe I will one day. I don't yet. I'm just getting started. This is a baby company, you guys. But setting a short term milestone is something that I'm a huge fan of. And I think that at the very least, we should have some tangible annual goals. And then I break those down into quarterly goals with weekly and monthly milestones. And the simplest way to do this for me is define your objectives on a quarterly basis, right? So we know where we're going to go in a year, right? And that's your bigger, let's just call that the big goals or the year goals. And these are going to be practical things that you can measure, right? These are the SMART goals. Um, And once we have our quarterly objectives, which are based on if we meet all 4 of our quarterly objectives, we will have achieved our annual goal. We determine what we want to achieve in the next quarter, right? So we're just about to break in. If you're listening to this right when we're airing, it's the end of March 2023. We are about to start Q2, um, which I think is the first Monday, which is what, April 2nd. That's the beginning of the second quarter. And, we have 3 fresh, clean months in which we can try to like harness some action and some progress on our goals. So for me, this past weekend and this next weekend, I'm going to be sitting and taking some time to really map out what my quarter looks like for my quarterly goals because I have milestones that I want to achieve. Right. So the first thing is to determine the quarterly objectives. And those things need to be smart, right? Specific, measurable, and time bound. They need to be actionable and, all those things, realistic. So, for example, increase revenue by 25%. That's a specific thing. Launch a new product line is a specific thing. Or grow your email list by 10%. That's a specific thing. That's a number. That's something that you can actually see, right? And step two is establish the key actions with these milestones, right? So once you've identified your objectives, it's time to determine which results are going to be the thing that gets you there. And your key results can be specific and measurable outcomes that contribute to the larger quarterly objective. So, for example, if your objective is chosen from the examples to grow your email list by 10%, right? That's a specific number that you know because you have a list and you're going to grow by 10%, whatever that number is. And you might mark out some things that you're going to be doing. So some results that could be developed for this is to create a new lead magnet. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a lead magnet is, it's a free gift that you give to a new subscriber in exchange for them giving you their email address, right? And if you're interested in more on that, you can see episode 11 of my podcast where I go into more about how to create a lead magnet. And that is available at CorinneO'Flynn.com/episode 11. And that's the word episode and the digits 11, right? So back to our milestone example. We have set the milestone to create a new lead magnet. And once we create the new lead magnet, we are going to have to design a marketing campaign to get that lead magnet out into the world to make our audience aware. And perhaps a third measurable milestone would be to find some partners whose audiences we can use to share that lead magnet too. So that might look like asking a colleague to send your lead magnet out in their email newsletter, or being a guest on somebody else's podcast, or doing a guest blog, or whatever it is to get you out into the audience of somebody else's sphere. So those were three milestones, key actions that you can do in the quarter for that one objective, for the quarterly objective. So then after you have your key actions, right, with those milestones identified for the quarter, now you're going to monitor your progress regularly, right? So it's essential. This is step number 3, monitor progress. You have to stay on top of your progress to ensure that you're on track with your goals, right? So schedule regular check-ins with yourself to review your progress and adjust your approach as necessary. So for me, I find that a weekly check-in is perfect, and I do mine on Sundays. But you can do yours anytime that works for your schedule. Just be consistent so that you can have the best gauge of what's actually happening in your business and in your goals. And notice I say, like, the purpose of the monitoring of the progress is so that you can check in and recalibrate and adjust as necessary. I don't think it's realistic that we're going to stay on top of and hit every single goal every single time. Life happens, and it's part of the deal. And I think that that's part of the thing we need to really embrace. For example, today I spent most of today hanging out with a girlfriend of mine that I hadn't seen in a while. And I didn't work on a single thing until I got home, and then I recorded my podcast episode. So, we have to live our lives while we're running our businesses, because if we don't take care of our life, we won't be able to take care of our business. So we need to continue to set up milestones, and then we need to monitor them. So we check in on a weekly basis. For me, that's on Sundays. It could be any day of the week for you. Just make sure it's the same day of the week so that you have a whole week to gauge what's happening, right? Step 4, you focus your objectives, right? It can be really easy to get distracted and overwhelmed by creating too many tasks and too many projects in a quarter, right? And so that's why it's really essential to center your focus and prioritize the tasks associated with these goals as the priorities. These are the first things that we're going to work on because they are the most important, right? And some people suggest assigning a priority level, like numbering giving a value to each of these priority tasks that we have to do. But I have I have a less stringent way to keep myself focused. And I'm going to get into that next in step 2 and step 3. But um, with our quarterly objectives and our weekly milestones, the last step is to celebrate our successes. Okay. And so it's so easy to overlook our achievements and focus on what we haven't accomplished. Right. And that's what we're doing in this weekly check-in. Like we're saying, yes, we got these things done. Oop, we're slipping over here. So we're going to pivot, and we're trying to spot all the places where we're falling short. But we also need to catch ourselves doing the right things. We need to catch ourselves doing the good stuff, and celebrating our successes can help us stay motivated and help us stay focused on the goals. And this is something that I had to become much more mindful of this year. I was reminded by my friend who actually I saw today. Um, she's really good about celebrating every milestone, and I am just not. And so now I'm actually making myself celebrate in larger ways and smaller ways. But sometimes I get out of my house and I go treat myself to something. Sometimes I have a little dance party. Sometimes I just take some time off and I just hang, whatever that is for you. Choosing to do that thing mindfully because you are succeeding and you're celebrating that success is a wonderful thing. And it's something that you can really use to honor your progress. So I'll tell you, it does feel great. So if you haven't done that, if you were like me, the 6 month ago, Corinne, where you really weren't celebrating your successes, I'm going to urge you to really try, you know, it- no matter what you do, even if it's, you know, you did something and you didn't even have it written down, but you went back and wrote it down and crossed it off. Get up and do a little dance party, put on something really cool and, boogie down for a little bit. So take the time to acknowledge and celebrate your achievements, no matter how small, right? Because we're working so hard, right? We need to take those times out. So that was all tip number 1. Tip number 1 is set short-term milestones. So your quarterly goals and your weekly check-ins with things that you can actually measure. And tip number 2 is write down your goals daily. And I mean every single day. So I have a section in my daily planner that I use for writing my goals down. I do them in the same order every single day. I have them numbered. And as I write them down, I take a moment to soak up that goal in my mind, and I let myself remember why I chose that as a goal, right? And this helps me stay focused on the vision again. And this may sound really silly, but I am going to share this with you. And I share this because I shared it with my accountability group, and they were like, "Oh, I love it." And now they're doing it too. And it really does feel good. So after I write down my goals, and when I write my goals down, I have kind of like a shorthand. I have a couple of words for each goal. It's not like I want to have this, that, next thing. I have, like, for example, one of my goals is making sure that I get my weekly podcast done on a regular basis. And so my goal for that is just podcast. So I write the word podcast. After I write each of my goals and I sit with my eyes closed and I take a little bit of a deep breath into my goal and I kind of really reattach my heart to it, I draw a little heart next to my goal. And I know it sounds fluffy and weird, but try it. Like I'm telling you, it really helps you stay focused, and it makes me smile as I write my goals, and it makes me feel good. Like I chose these goals. I get to choose this. I'm I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur if you're listening to this podcast. It's You get to pick the things that you work on. So why not pick the stuff that lights you up, right? So I write down my goals and I put a little baby heart next to them, and I do this every single day, right? And the reason why is because writing down your goals increases clarity, right? It helps you clarify what you want to achieve, making it easier to develop and stay on your plan of action, right? It also improves your focus. Writing down your goals daily keeps them at the forefront of your mind. It helps you improve your focus and it helps you stay on track. It increases motivation, right? Because it provides a daily reminder of why you're working so hard, right? And as you continue to push through the obstacles, it increases your motivation because you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So you have these milestones every single week, and sometimes you're going to hit them and sometimes you're not. Let's just call that what that is. But it helps you stay motivated because you do see that you're making regular progress, right? And it provides accountability. So writing down your goals turns your planner into an accountability partner that sees you every single day and helps you stay committed. And you don't want to let yourself down, right? And this is not saying that if you do skip or miss or slip, that you're a failure. Like you just aren't. But this is going to be one more of those things that's in our tool belt to help us stay on the winning side of that. So it's all in moving us forward, right? We're not going to be rigid and legalistic about it. Um, Writing down our goals daily helps us with decision making, right? And this kind of goes back to the why, because it reminds us of what we're trying to achieve, right? And this is a really good one for me. And it's the reason why I write them down every single day, because not only is it just to keep it top of mind and all the other reasons why I mentioned, it's written on my planner below my daily tasks. And so I'm writing my daily tasks down as they come to me and as I've made out my day. I can see right away if the things that I'm spending my day on are in furtherance of my tasks, of my goals. So it's one of those things that really helps you stay on the path by saying, you know what, that's not really going to help me move the needle on my goals. So I'm going to try to just push that off into the weekend when I'm not working. But this thing I'm going to try to do today because this is something that's going to keep me there. So that's why I write them down on my planner. I write them every single day on every planner page, and it's right there, right in front of me all the time with little happy little hearts to make me feel good about my choices, right? And writing down your goals daily reinforces the belief that you can achieve them, which boosts your self-confidence, right? And that's something that everyone needs more of that. Please and thank you, right? And that's empowering. It helps us continue to want to stay and stay at it and take action. It helps us prioritize our tasks, right? Because we have our goals written down and we are not going to put tasks in there that don't fit with our goals. And one of the things that I do is I make sure that when I am hitting a goal, I draw a little line between my task and my goal so that it kind of keeps me accountable and it helps me stay on my priorities. So, if you've taken the time to identify your quarterly goals, right? And then your milestones and what they're going to look like for each of your goals, you know, keep your tasks in line with those things too. And writing down your goals daily stimulates your subconscious mind, which promotes creativity, right? And for those of you out there who are familiar with Strengths Finders, and if you're not, that's okay. But the Strength Finders, Clifton Strengths Finders, it's a personality assessment test, and it gives you it rates 34 strengths that we all have. And it just tells you which are your most prevalent down to the ones that are not most available to you. And the ones that are not most available to you, they are not your weaknesses, folks. They are just not the ones that are available to you most readily. So they're all strengths. We all have all of them. But there's one called intellection. And intellection is, I think it's my number 3. And it's one of those things where it's your subconscious mind. It's the percolation. And for people who write down when you write down your goals on a daily basis, it triggers something in your subconscious mind. And for me, I call it intellection. And I'll tell my intellection, okay, go to work, solve this problem, because writing my goals down puts the percolation on, right? And it helps me solve things that I'm not necessarily thinking about in the front of my mind, right? And when they do arrive, these solutions, they feel like creativity, right? Because that's what it is. Like I'm working in the back burner's cooking and percolating. And when something's ready, it comes right to the front. And so when I can repeatedly write my goals down, it encourages my brain to keep thinking of new ways to solve for these objectives, right? So all the wonderful things. So it increases the likelihood of success, right? Research has shown that people who write down their goals are more likely to achieve them, right? And writing them down daily, I think, reinforces that even further, right? So that's step 2. Step 1 was to set short-term milestones, right? Step 2 was to write down your goals daily, every single day. And tip number 3 is something that I think that I spent more time on like really being mindful of this in the last year or so, maybe the last couple of years. And it's touch my goals weekly. Most people who talk about goals with me, they struggle because they have their list of their goals and they're trying to fit everything into their daily schedule. Right. And I think that, when you write down your list of goals daily, it feels like a pressure in kind of a, like, so I have 8 goals, right? If I try to fit all 8 goals in my day, that's not going to work. Like it's just, there's too much happening in my quarter to make sure that I have them all happening in a day. So instead, I try to make sure that I touch all of my goals on a weekly basis. So what does this mean? I will sit down at the end of my weekly review, or actually this coming weekend is going to be my pre-quarterly review. I will look ahead at the coming week and I'll map out my week based on the milestones that I need to aim, right? I need to aim for. And I'll look ahead. And the first thing I'll do with my calendar is I'll mark down any events that are going to take me out of the house. And if like Wednesdays are usually my errand day, if I have things out of the house, I'll fill in my planner with all the things that are happening, meetings, Zooms, whatever. And then I will look at the milestones from last week, see where I landed at the end of the week, adjust forward for the things that I have ahead of me and the things that I was behind on and the things that I made super progress on. And then I'm going to figure out what I need to get done this week, right? And then I'm going to look at my week ahead and I'm going to block out time for each of my milestones. And usually each goal has its own milestone that I'm aiming for every week. So I try to figure out how much time each of those things is going to need and I drop them into the calendar, right? So some of those things I will do every single day of the week, right? And like, for example, as an author, I try so hard to get writing done every single week. I schedule it every day. I don't always get there, but I do schedule writing every day. But other things will only take time on one day or maybe only on 2 days. So it's not important. It's actually not even possible to schedule every single goal into every single day. Right. And I think that if you tried to do that, you'd feel really scattered and it would backfire. You'd get less done because you'd just be switching and switching and switching. It's just too much. And I don't think it's good for us to be working like, 14-hour days. So the whole purpose of this is to work less, right? We're trying to simplify and we're trying to accelerate by simplifying. And the best way to do that, I think, for me, is to look at our goals and touch them on a weekly basis. So instead of saying I have to do every single thing every single day, look at it on a weekly basis and make sure that at the end of each week, you will have touched each goal and made some progress on each goal in a week. And that way, when you are sitting down at the end of your week and you're doing your scheduled check-in, you're going to review how you did, right? And again, you're going to review how you did because you might not have achieved everything. And that's human. This is normal. And this is the way the world works. And maybe some things you blew out of the water, like you just totally like wrapped up a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't expect to because of whatever. So you're going to take your weekly check-in, you're going to reassess what happened, and then you're going to move again and you're going to start again and move into next week. So it's a cycle. And I refer to it as like the machine where you get into a rhythm and you, you assess and then you plan and you review and then you reassess and you plan and you review and you do all those things. And hopefully by the end of each month, you will have measurable progress on certain things. And sometimes, and this is something that does happen to me on a regular basis, I will find that after I've worked, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks on a project or tried and failed to work and make progress on a goal, I will start to realize, well, maybe, this, I have to revisit this as a goal. Should this be a goal? Is the timing right on this one? Or is the goal itself right for me? Like that, the purpose, I think, or the value in looking at it in weekly chunks and then monthly chunks and then quarterly chunks is it allows you that space to kind of move. And so you don't waste any more time than is necessary before you realize, yeah, I'm going to call it. This is not something that I'm going to do. Or you realize, wow, I totally overestimated how much time this was going to take and I got it done so much sooner. I can do something different with this. And then maybe you take a goal that was a quarterly goal and you expand it. You double it or triple it, make it like I can do so much more in a quarter now that I see what I got done in a month. So I think it's just really important to do that check-in and have a reality check and a gut check. What stays, what's going to go, what's working, what's not working. And if everything is working, it's just, you're just going to continue to shimmy on the over under of what you got done and what you didn't get done. That's perfect too. Just keep on trucking and then look at things. And then when you get to each quarter, you reassess on the quarterly goals, right? Where did you fall short on the quarterly goals? Because now I'm doing that. I'm moving into Q2 and I'm going to be start wrapping up and reviewing my Q1 goals. And, I don't know how I did on all of them because some of them are kind of, I have to go check stats and I have to go check, dashboard things that I don't necessarily look at on a daily basis. So it'll be an adventure, right? So that's what I have for you today. This week, in this episode, we talked about the importance of setting goals and the value of really knowing your why in your business. And I gave you 3 tips to consider when you're setting your goals. And tip number 1 was to set short-term milestones, right? Which was defining your quarterly objectives and establishing your key actions and monitoring your progress regularly and focusing on your objectives daily to keep you in line with your goals and then celebrating your successes, right? Tip number 2 was writing your goals down daily. And tip number 3 was touching your goals weekly and don't force yourself to hit every goal every day. So thank you for listening. That's all I have for you today. And I hope that this was helpful for you. And this episode came as a result of listener questions and emails and messages to me. So if you have an idea for a podcast episode, or if you have a question or anything at all that you would like me to discuss further, please, I welcome you. Please email me, send me a message. And if you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, please subscribe. And just, hit me up. I'd love to hear from you. And my email address is hello@CorinneOFlynn.com. And Corinne O'Flynn is spelt with double N's in both of my names and no double R's. So thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a great week. Remember, part of being a calm entrepreneur is developing the systems, habits, and know-how that lets you know that you are the one in the driver's seat. You get to choose how you run your business, and you get to choose how you work. So you got this. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Corinne O'Flynn, and if this episode was valuable to you, please head on over and rate and review wherever you consume your podcasts. Please subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. New episodes go out each week on Tuesdays, and I look forward to hanging with you again. This is Corinne signing off. Have an excellent day.